Welcome to Envy's Donut, a podcast about everything, anything, and nothing in between. Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode. Our guest tonight is Andrew Bosley. Hi, Andy. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. I mean, it's not night in your part of the world, isn't it?
No, it's still warm and sunny where I'm at right now.
That's great. Well, tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm an illustrator. Most people probably know me from board games, of course, and work that I've done on some games like Everdell and Tapestry and Merchants of the Dark Road, things like that. But I've been in board games only really for a short amount of time, relatively, since 2018. But before that, I was full-time working in video games as a concept artist. I've been freelancing for about almost 10 years now. But before that, I worked for Ubisoft, where I was a video game concept artist full-time with them, working on stuff like Ghost Recon and Assassin's Creed and different video game brands with them.
Oh, wow.
But I've always been a board gamer, and I really love being in this community and this industry, and so it's been great to be here. So I draw and paint, and that's me basically.
Oh, please tell me you're not famous because I can't have famous people on this podcast.
No, I don't think so. So your record is fine. I'm just this weirdo that draws pictures. So you didn't even invite me. I just heard that there was this thing, and I just, I'm just here crashing your party. So
I'm glad you're here, man. How did it all started, this passion for drawing and illustrating?
from a very young age, I knew that I wanted to be in art. I really didn't have any other real interest. For a short time in high school, I was considering architecture, which I've always been fascinated with, but it wasn't the right fit for me in the end. But I've been drawing since I was a little kid, and I had very supportive parents that encouraged me. They probably saw that I couldn't do anything useful other than draw as well, so they thought you might as well do that. As a kid, I tried to find any opportunity I could to do art in my community, school, but also stuff like, there were community events in my area, and I sometimes got a chance to participate in those things and add art in some way. I did murals for when I was in school for a long time. That was probably a more natural transition for me from what I was doing when I was younger, but because I had a reputation for drawing on the walls in my house. It was just a passion from a very young age, and so it's been a natural thing to take it professionally. And I feel very fortunate and blessed to be able to do that. It's a hard industry to be in at times, and to put food on the table. So I feel very fortunate.
It is indeed. Were you one of those kids who used to draw their teachers in class?
That is a good question. I didn't. This isn't specifically an answer, but I was not a very rebellious kid or mischievous or anything like that. So probably drawing my teacher would probably be one of the last things that I would do. But not to say that there weren't teachers that deserved to be drawn pictures of in a funny way, but I just probably wasn't the person to do it. But so no, I wasn't that guy. But kudos to anybody else that is.
That's all right. No problem. I mean, being a good lad. What about a project in school? Have you been part of any school projects?
In high school, I mean, you're talking about from when I was younger.
Yeah.
There were opportunities to do things in very small ways with my school, like our yearbook every year was something new, and I'd do the cover for the yearbook, but nothing terribly interesting in school. My teacher gave me opportunities to enter competitions a lot when I was younger, my high school teacher, And so there were some things that I was pretty proud of. My senior year of high school, there was a county-wide art festival that went on, and I designed the main artwork, the branding for that whole festival, which was a neat thing. It was a competition that I won, and it wasn't really a big deal, but it was something that I felt like I was contributing to something much bigger than myself for the first time. But I mean, this outside of professional things, I don't get a chance to do too many exciting projects that are part of too many things. I had a neat thing here, actually not very long ago. I don't know if this fits in kind of what you're talking about, but I live in a town called Prescott, Arizona. I've been here for about 8 years, and the month that my family and I moved here, this town had a very significant wildfire and a very famous disaster that killed 19 firefighters, hotshot firefighters. It's a title of firefighters here in this area, and we are good friends with some of the families of those that died in that. And I was asked to help paint a mural in the community for that, to kind of commemorate them and what they did and their sacrifice. And so sometimes I get a chance to do things that are maybe a little bit more community based and more interesting on projects that are outside of my normal professional things. But I'm also kind of a hermit, so not many people know much about me or see me around. So maybe I'm not as used as maybe I could.
Well, up to now you're an open book, so everybody will know everything.
I mean, this is the tell-all, everybody has been waiting for. You're going to ask all the really deep questions, and the deepest recesses of my soul are going to be exposed here to everybody. So yeah, this is the moment right here.
That's great. I'm glad I'm here doing this then.
You're giving the people so much what they want. My tell-all.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I'm only here to basically hear your stories. That's why I'm here, because I believe everybody has their own stories and their own experiences, and we can all learn something from them.
It is true. It is true.
Did you go to art school?
No, not exactly. I went to a state university in California where I grew up. So it was not known for its art, other than I was very, very fortunate because I mean I did find this school on purpose because of its art, but it gave me an extremely fantastic education, but it's not an art school, and it is not known within the art community. It doesn't have a reputation except for people who really know what's going on. Like people who a lot of companies recognize the school I went to as a good school for recruiting from. But like if someone were to type in, what school should I go to if I want to do this, if I want to be an illustrator, if I want to be a concept artist, my school would never show up. It's not one of those that's like that is a name that people go, oh yeah, of course, it's San Jose State University. But it did happen to be a fantastic program. So without being an art school, without incurring the insane amount of debt that traditional art schools would have put upon me, I got a very great art education.
Can you be an illustrator without going to art school?
Absolutely. I mean, I would even say now you don't even need to go to college to be an illustrator. I mean, you need to educate yourself, and you can't just decide I want to be an illustrator and you're going to be fantastic just by being self-taught. But I think there are opportunities specifically in creative fields that there are avenues to get educated very well that do not require you to follow a traditional college university route. Maybe it's still the best way, perhaps, but at the same time, the cost to get that education, I don't know if it's worth it in comparison to get something that's almost as good, and I'm not tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt by the time I'm done. There's so many opportunities out there where there are artists out there that want to mentor or teach, and there's the online programs that are out there that really can give you what you need. In the creative world, it really comes down to what you put into it ultimately anyway. If you have the passion and drive, then a university will give you access to teachers that are great, but there's also teachers that are available that have decided they would rather work than get their master's degree, so they're not qualified, so a university wouldn't even hire them, but they're still brilliant and they could still teach. So yeah, absolutely. There's lots of ways that you can get an education outside of a university and be an illustrator. I believe that very much so.
So, what skills do you think you need to be a great illustrator?
That's a great question. I don't totally believe in the idea that people just have this natural talent and that I probably fit the profile of a kid who you would look at and go, I was one of those kids that you just assumed would be an artist. I had a proficiency at it at an early age and I was working on it. But I think you need to have an eye to see when things can be improved. I mean, that type of quality is valuable in any profession, I'm sure, but you have to have the drive yourself to get better and better. And if you happen to have that drive and you happen to have an interest in art, then I think that you can, and in illustration specifically, then you can be a great illustrator. I couldn't be stopped from drawing day and night. That was just what I had to do all the time. And I had to get better. I was not satisfied with where I was at any time. I'm still not. And I think that that's a wonderful thing. It's also maybe stressful. Other skills, without getting too technical or too specific, you obviously have to have a passion for art specifically and a desire to get into those nitty gritty things like anatomy and color and light and all those sorts of things, so that are very specific to illustration. But in general, I feel like you don't have to be that person who from the moment you were born everybody knew you were going to be an artist to be a successful artist. That can start later in life if you have that passion to make that happen. Some people are just not exposed to that. I don't know what made that happen for me, but I've seen lots of artists come later in life and achieve what they want to with that.
Are you coming from a family who are into arts?
No. Well, they were very supportive, like I said, but they were not artists in any way. My dad was a programmer in the Navy. He was always in computers. My mom was a teacher. My mom is very musical. I took piano lessons when I was younger and continued in music along with my art at the same time, but art specifically, no. Nobody in my family drew or painted. My grandmother did, but it's funny. It's like it was never something that even she talked to me about. She was not a professional artist, but she painted. And it turns out that my mom liked to paint and has dabbled in painting since she's retired. But at the time while I was doing art, maybe it's just me being a kid, but it seemed like I was the only one in my family that cared about art, other than my family caring that I enjoyed art. It wasn't something they were doing. Maybe they had some interest, but just weren't pursuing it because life requires other things of us at times. So,
Yeah. Well, what was your drive? What is your drive? What do you feel when you're drawing? What pushed you to draw? What was the force behind it? What do you feel when you draw? Where do you get your ideas? How do you know what to draw?
I don't always know what to draw. It's funny when I'm working for clients, which is most of what anybody listening to this would know my work from, is from client projects. Where somebody hires me and I paint for them. Those are really easy for me. And unfortunately, they're not always the most creative. So that's when I'm painting for a client, I would love to say that my mind is just, I'm thinking about deep things and so artistic and so creative. There's just amazing things that are happening in my, but it's not. Most of the time I have a job to do and I need to get that done. When I was younger, there wasn't anything like that. I was left to my own devices and my own interests, and so I didn't always know what I wanted to draw at the time. But I think even from a very young age, I really liked the idea. I was very inspired by creative people that created unique worlds. Star Wars was an influential thing for me when I was a kid. Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings was very influential for me. And then as I got older and there were more people coming into this, more examples to showcase, like J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter and Brandon Mull and Fablehaven and things like that. From a young age, I found inspiration in movies, in books, in TV shows, in new and interesting worlds. And so my art often headed in that direction. I was creating things that people hadn't seen before, or I thought were new, and they maybe transported me a little bit into something that was more exciting and more romantic, that I would want to be in that space. At the best times in my art, that's what I'm trying to do. And there are many times with many clients when I am, that's actively what I'm trying to do for them, and I'm enjoying it while I'm doing it. And then there's lots of projects that I work on my own that I try to get to do that exact thing, but for my own worlds that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, so you're like a world creator. You like to create worlds.
We say world building and world builders and things like that. That feels really pretentious to me.
I call that God syndrome.
Yes, that's very pretentious. But we need people in the world who do that, and I'm really grateful for the people who have done that. And so it's an ambitious goal. I'm fortunate that people are hiring me in board games usually to try to get that type of sense in their game, to feel a little more immersed in whatever the world they're trying to present in their game. And I'm really fortunate that I get to work on my own projects where that's all that I'm thinking about. And in my highest of ambitions, I hope that I can tell a story that people will want to hear and see.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. You start with a blank piece of paper, and then you come up with this magic. It's fantastic. I'm always in awe about this process. What was the lowest point of your life, Andy? It doesn't have to be a tragedy. I'm not looking for drama, but sometimes when you're in the worst place, you'll get the most out of it, basically, a life experience, or you learn something new or something like that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I haven't experienced severely traumatic things really in my life. I've certainly experienced hard and difficult things. I think I've found the hardest things in my life have happened as an adult, being a husband and a father. My first thought when I think of the hardest things that I've gone through, probably the thing that comes to my mind is my oldest son. My wife and I, we have 5 kids, and my oldest is almost 20, and he was diagnosed when he was 3.5 with autism, and um, and and that was not that was a challenging thing because it was new to us, but we had noticed some things that were a challenge for our son, uh, and then family had suggested, oh, maybe this could be what, and other people. These were challenges and things that were obvious to us as his parents, and also to other family members. And I remember a family member, just suggesting, he could be autistic, and we began pursuing that, and then we got did some testing and got a diagnosis from a psychiatrist, psychologist, I can't remember. But I remember when that happened, just for a short little while, this was kind of a unique experience. This is a new experience for us. We kind of were wondering if we didn't know our son, the way that we thought we did, or that what we knew of our son wasn't truly him, like it was the thing that he was struggling with was him, what was masking what truly was our son Will. That's a pretty personal struggle that we in perspective and context, it's like it was just a hard thing for us at that moment, and we stepped up and did the best that we could to help him and meet those challenges that he had. And so, but there's been plenty of other things like that. Like, I mean, the question, I don't know if the question is you might have gotten a lot of, drama and personal stuff in there. I assume you weren't only asking about art related things, but art side of things for me, are not that dramatic. But the times when, some of the hard times include not being able to pay the rent, when my family is counting on me and I can't do it. And I'm not sure what's going to happen. The rent is due tomorrow and I don't have that. I'm very fortunate that that's not as much of a concern anymore. It's still unpredictable as a freelancer. Not everything is guaranteed to be there, but it was harder in our earlier parts of our marriage where I didn't know where things were going, or even as a freelancer recently, in the last 5 years, there's been times where I thought, why am I even doing art? Why am I doing this at all? Like, things just aren't working out. I should be doing something else. And I've considered that multiple times in my career. And though that can be really, really disheartening and a challenge. I don't know. Everybody's got hard things, so it's hard to say these are my hard things, and they might not seem like anything to anybody else, but in the moment we're all, we're vulnerable and we struggle and we get through those the best that we can. And so we've had plenty of those in my life, and but they're definitely things. When I think of my own personal struggles, they're struggles usually with my wife. I mean, not struggles between me and my wife so much, but just things that I'm so grateful that I have her, because I couldn't think of those struggles without thinking about what a support she was and that I was for her, that we were together. So that's the hard stuff for me. The art is fun, and that just happens to be the career that I'm in, but real life with family and relationships and life and the wear and tear of life, that's the real stuff that we all have to go through, and it affects us differently. So yeah, I've had my a fair share of those things.
No, I can definitely. I don't know if I understand, but I understand the stress, the fears, the things you've probably been through, because we had something similar. We had same fears with our oldest son, even though it didn't turn up to have any problems. But we've been to the same similar stress, and I know how difficult must have been for you, especially if it's the first child and it's all new, and then you find out that it might be more than you thought. And yeah, it's very difficult. But how did you manage to get on with your life and have four more children?
It was hard. It was hard. I mean, it's so funny to think of it as my struggle, because it was my son that had some struggles with that. So I'll answer that, I guess, in a second. But it's interesting because it turns out he is autistic, but very high functioning. At the time, it felt fairly low functioning. There were things that were really hang-ups for him that were difficult, but he's grown, and I'd like to think through a lot of the hard work that we put in to kind of help him and teach him and do some things. He's currently living on his own. He has a job and is paying his own bills, and he's doing fine. So he's a but the things that were a struggle were things I would look at him and I go, he's the one that's going to have these challenges. And what's been interesting is we had our oldest, Will, and then we had other children, and our fourth child, Nathan, by far has even much more severe challenges than our oldest does. Lots of significant challenges there. And so it was almost like our oldest was kind of in preparation for our fourth child, who will struggle in a very significant way for the rest of his life. So I think when I think about these things as well, I think about him like physically he looks like everything is just fine, but then he has some severe mental, emotional, relationship struggles that will be with him for the rest of his life. It's hard on our family for sure, but man, it's really hard on him. And I feel really, really bad that this is what his experience is, and so we're doing the best that we can to help him to have as wonderful, positive experience as he can. But in terms of going back and how I mean, it's probably a simpler question than you might expect. I went into my marriage with my wife. She had already expectations of how many kids we would have. And so I don't think we approached it as, well, this is a challenge, so we're not going to have any more kids. The other part of it is we didn't even know that he was autistic until our second son had already been born. When we had that challenge that we were working with him on, we were already working on helping our next son. But I think as well, we had always had intentions of having a relatively larger family. And I don't even know if that ever came up. I don't know if we ever said, this is hard. I don't know if we're going to have any more kids. But it definitely was just hard in general. I remember this is getting real raw and emotional. I remember being in college at one point and being late for an assignment, and not in art at all, but I remember calling my professor, who I had built a relationship with a little bit through the course of my semester, and I was just calling her to let her know that I didn't have this paper in. I couldn't turn it in. I just couldn't do it, and I just broke down crying on the phone because I had just found out all of this stuff. I had just learned all of this stuff about my oldest son, and it was just like I didn't know what life was going to be like. I didn't know. I had so many questions. I was so just anyway. But it seems again, it's a challenge. Those things are hard, and they're hard as a parent. They're hard to watch your children go through those things. But I have to say, my faith is a significant part of my life. That certainly played a significant part in coping with that experience and continuing to raise all of our children. And the support of good friends and good community and good family was obviously a huge part of it. I'm very, very fortunate that even in those hard things, I've had a great support system to help me and my family get through them.
I think challenges like this can only make you stronger as a family and as a father and as a person, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't expecting this. That's the thing. I mean, every time I talk to people, they are finding about other people's experiences, and then they are comparing their lives and say, "Oh, my life is not a struggle, or I didn't have to go through these challenges or those," and they start to see their lives a little bit different, and I think that's helpful. But my question is, why do we always have to see some bad experiences to enjoy our own lives? Why can't we just be glad and happy with what we have?
It's a great question. I mean, I don't think that we have to see bad in other things to be able to see those necessarily, but I mean, we certainly can appreciate the good times because the reality is the good times are not constant. So I can be happy and appreciate those times that I have them because I'm so grateful that I'm not back where I was 2 weeks ago or 2 years ago or 2 decades ago when things were harder. And I know I'm going to go into something harder in a couple weeks or a month, and so I'm going to enjoy those moments while I have them. But that's hard to see it that way. And I don't know if it's in relation to comparing to other people. I hope that happens constantly for all of us, but I feel grateful for so many of the things that I have. I feel very blessed to have those things, and I feel fortunate, and I try to do my best to help other people as much as I can. But I'm guilty of looking at other people's lives, and at the same time, and go, I wish I had that, or I don't know.
Yeah, we all do that. On one hand, it's a good thing because it gives you another perspective, and you can see then that life can go in so many different ways. And it,
Yeah, I'm very open with my life and the experiences that I've had. I think probably maybe this is very much related to what you're asking. Just like anybody else, I look at people. I look at people in my profession, and I look at just we have such an outward facing experience of people's. We see so much of people's lives these days, way more than we should, through social media and through all these other things. Like, people's personal lives are not super personal, and they should be more so. But also because those things can be tailored to be just the good things all the time. When we consume all of that, all we see is the wonderful things that are happening in everybody else's life. Well, I must be the only person who's having difficult things going on. What am I doing wrong? Why are they so much better? What do they do to deserve to have a perfect life when I don't? And we kid ourselves, or we misunderstand that real life for everybody is filled with hard things all the time, and we don't see it so much. So I like being open about this sort of stuff because I don't want anybody ever might think that either life was really easy for me or for other people, or just to think that, I don't know.
yeah, I know what you're saying.
Especially when I've talked to people about my career and stuff, like, I don't have a picture perfect career. Like, my path to where I'm at right now, if there is any sort of success to be put on where I'm at right now, it's not through something that seemed like a straight line in any way. I was telling you earlier, I hope that these types of interviews and conversations help future artists when they go, I'm this old, or so I should be here, or this is going on. No other artist has to go through this. I must be a horrible artist, or whatever. It's like, I've had the weirdest career path and have had setbacks all over the place. I think it's really important for people to see those hiccups and those stumbling blocks along the way, because that's just real life.
You know what they say, it takes 10 years for an overnight success.
It's true. Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, because it's easy to see only the successful bit, and say, "Oh, but you're so lucky, man. I mean, you've been through all this, you work for all these clients. You must be very lucky. How do I get those clients?" Well, there's a lot of work behind that, before that, and to get into that position. Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. It's a lot of work, basically. You need a little bit of luck as well, but
And I'm doing the same thing. I honestly have a hard time imagining that someone would ever be going where Andrew is at all. But it shouldn't be that funny to think of, because I'm doing the exact same thing to other artists. I'm going, oh man, they make it look so easy that they're able to do this sort of thing. And they're probably exactly like me, just going, I'm just sitting here at my desk drawing and painting all day.
do you have a person that changed your life?
I have lots of people that have changed my life. Gosh.
Let me ask you this way. Do you have a person that changed your life for the better?
Still lots of those, but I'd have to say my wife. I mean, it's an easy answer. As far as people that are personally in my life, certainly the most important has been my wife. I mean, my parents, of course, that's an obvious thing, but there's individuals that have been along the way. I've had art teachers that have made a significant difference, a very significant difference. I mean, I probably wouldn't be in my where I'm at right now if it wasn't for my high school art teacher, Miss Hines. I wouldn't be where I am without the art professors that I had in college, Bunny Carter and Courtney Granner and John Clapp and all these people. But again, the most important stuff are the things probably beyond art for me, and I certainly wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without the support of my awesome wife. So Marin, she's fantastic. But that just seems like such an easy answer.
Yeah. Well, Let's talk about some people in your life that not related to you. So like you said, art teachers. And do you have a piece of advice you can remember from one of them that maybe shaped your career later?
Yeah. So I'll start with one that seems fairly trivial, but it's probably the number one thing I've remembered the most. I remember taking a community art class when I was in the fourth grade. The art teacher was Mr. Long, who was the husband of my current teacher in school, Mrs. Long. Mr. Long taught me that the only thing you need to draw is a pencil and a piece of paper. And that seems so simple and, again, trivial, but artists like to second guess themselves a lot, or self-conscious, and we often go, okay, I've got to have all the tools, I've got to have the right things, I've got to have whatever. And I remember, I don't even think that that was his intention of giving this thought, but I just remember going, I've got a pencil, I've got a paper, so I can draw, I can I can make stuff. That's it. I don't need it. I don't need to have. He didn't say I need to have this brand of pencil. He didn't say I need to have this brand of sketchbook. He said one piece of paper and one pencil, and you can draw. And I really truly have held on to that for a very, very long time. But a lot of my art professors in college had great things to impart, but they might be a little bit more technical. I did appreciate, speaking a little bit about family in the past, like, when my second was born, I remember being in my art class and and going to my professor and go, my wife's in labor, I have to go. And he was so cool. This is my professor, John Clapp, great artist and a great teacher. And he just said, that's what this is all about. That is important. Get out of here. Don't even, don't worry about your assignments. Don't worry about anything. You go and you take care of your wife, and you go and be with your family, and we're going to be here when you get back, and don't stress about any of this, because that's what this is all about. And that was a really neat thing. And I did have several professors that taught very similar things in different ways. But when you're in college, you kind of go, artists, I think in particular, well, lots of people, probably lots of creatives do this. They identify themselves as an artist or a musician or this, and it's like, that is what I am. And there's, first and foremost, I'm an artist. And my teachers all had those identities, I think, in the right order, and I appreciated that. And being one of the only people in my class that had a family, that was married and had kids, there were a lot of times I felt like I didn't have any regrets, but I did feel isolated at times. And so there were times where I assumed that everybody must think, what an idiot, why do you have a family when you're in college while you're doing this? And my professors, maybe more so than others, I thought maybe they probably felt that same way, but they were totally supportive, and they helped me to understand, okay, you're an artist, great, and do a great job being an artist, and we're going to teach you how to be an artist, but that's just one part of life, so don't make such a big deal about it. Go have a family. And I appreciate it.
Do you have a favorite book? Do you have a book that made you change your perspective, or made you say, wow, I didn't know that, or helped you in any way?
Yeah. There's been several books that are like that. I just read a book that I really, really enjoyed, and called If You Can Keep It. It's by a guy named Eric Metaxas. It's a book basically about the history of the United States, and it's basically just a little bit about our history and a little bit about some unique characteristics of what brought about our country. It's obviously a relatively young country, and while there are obviously things that have happened in our history, like any country's history, that aren't things we're proud of, there are lots of things to be proud of, and it was something that I really, really enjoyed. It happens to be probably the last book I read as well, but so it's on my mind, but it was also a very good, powerful book for me.
So what did you learn? What was the thing that stuck in your mind after reading the book, or impressed you the most?
That it's okay to be proud of your country, and it's not even specifically, this book clearly was about the United States, but implied in even in the message of the whole thing is everybody should be proud of where they come from. I mean, everybody can point to things in their country's past that aren't great. There's bad people in history always. But that doesn't mean that you can't be proud of where you come from and love your country, love the heritage that you are a part of, and sometimes that's specific to the country that you live in, and sometimes it's a little broader than that. And that heritage might expand beyond just the political boundaries of your country. But particularly here in our country, it's there that is not a popular view that you can be proud of your country, proud of the United States.
Really? Americans come across as being very patriotic.
Yes, and it's so funny. I've been trained to be guarded a little bit even to answer these questions. Yes, we are. There is a unique, or we like to think that there is a unique spirit or a unique, heritage that comes with our country. And there objectively are lots of things that brought about the United States that are unique to this country. There is a lot of patriotism in the country, and that is an appropriate thing and should be a good thing to a degree, just as it should be a good thing in any other country to a degree. But there are many people and ideas and trends in the country that would put that philosophy down, especially if your country is doing very well or has done very well. And I think this is just a trend with how people act to individuals who do really well. Like in sad states of being humans, we like to see great things fall.
Yeah, hate the rich and things like that.
Yeah. So anyway, I think there's some of that philosophy in our own country. Probably there is in every country a little bit of that. And so I learned maybe from this book to recognize things as they are, but to be proud of the things that are good and to appreciate the things that are good. And I think that that's a really good thing and needs to be embraced more often.
Yeah, definitely. Andy, you are an illustrator. Do you have any hobbies?
Yeah. Outside of art, I do. I love to build things. I love woodworking. I'm not great at it. The ability to purchase good tools makes a big difference in how good of a woodworker you can be. But even when I was just in school, I remember building my first desk, and the only thing I had was a drill and a hammer. I don't think I even owned a saw at the time of any kind. I had to get Home Depot or, the hardware store to cut some of my stuff for me. But I remember I needed a drawer in my desk. I wanted a drawer in my desk that I had built. So I had this solid front to my desk that I needed a hole in because that's where my drawer was going to be. And that was the only way I knew how to do it. So I took my drill and I made basically a perforated edge and just drilled a whole bunch of holes in a row. And then I took my hammer and bashed it through to make my hole the size I needed for my drawer. And then, of course, that looks really horrible. So fortunately, that was built at a time when distressed furniture was really cool to people. So I decided this is a really rustic piece of furniture. It looked horrible. It was horrible. And we saved that until really almost a couple years ago. But over the years, as I have been less destitute and horribly poor, I've been able to get better materials and better things. And so I love to build stuff. You can't see it. And this isn't maybe the best thing that I've ever made, but the desk that I work on, I built this desk. It's a very big, giant desk, and I love it. So woodworking I love. I used to pretend that I could play the ukulele, and I love the ukulele, but it just sits on my shelf now. I have a very big interest in ships. I love ships, and I love model ships. I'm including it as a hobby, even though I have hardly done anything with it, but I intend for it to be a hobby when I have more time, is to build wood ships, from scratch. I love boats and stories of ships and seafaring people and things like that. I find that really fascinating. So model ship building is a beginner hobby for me at the moment, but I hope to be better at it in the future. But I don't really have a lot of time. I love to read. I love to play soccer. I'm a big soccer football fan.
For an American, that's interesting.
I lived in England for 2 years of my life. My number one team is Norwich City because I lived in Norwich for a time. They're in the Premier League right now, but most likely will be relegated. But when they are not in the Premier League, they are still my favorite team. But then I follow Tottenham, which I also lived in Tottenham for a time, and so they're my team as well. But so yeah, I love soccer, and
How did you end up in England?
I was a missionary. I was a missionary for my church for 2 years. It was a really neat experience, and I miss it. I have not been to England other than Heathrow Airport once or twice, and I miss it. I love, love, love England.
Well, you can always come back.
I know. I want to. I want to. I would desperately love to. I don't know if I'd move, but I would love to regularly be going back to England because I just think it is England. You're in England.
Yeah, we've got nice weather here, you know.
Yeah, so I know you do. But speaking of heritage and the spirit, England's got that. Dang. So I love England. That brought about a passion for soccer. I played soccer when I was a kid, and I love to play soccer now when I can. Gosh, I think that's probably it. I have thought if something were to happen and I couldn't be an illustrator, this might sound unusual, I should say. I love tractors and I love driving tractors, and I don't own one, but I really would love to own a tractor because it is so fun to do. And so I have thought someday, if something ever to happen, or maybe when I retire and my hands are not working or whatever, and I have to steer a tractor with my wrists or something, I'd want to just be a guy who digs things for people because I love moving dirt with tractors. It sounds weird, but it's true.
It's not. It's every kid's dream.
Yeah. This is the perfect forum to tell this. This has been on my mind for a very long time. I'm going to tell you this. And this is the way to tell everybody. I'm broadcasting this information to everybody. If anybody needs a board game illustrated and they are willing to pay me with a tractor, I would do it in a second. A second. And I would give them the best deal in the world. They would get so much art if they gave me a functioning tractor. I'd do almost anything for that. So it's an open thing for anybody.
You might get it now.
I would love it.
You have to be more specific because you could be like in one of those movies where you ask for something and you're not specific enough, and then somebody will send you a working tractor but a miniature one.
This is true. It has to be one that I could sit in and it functions, and ideally it would have a backhoe or perhaps a Gannon. I'm getting specific here, but I'm pretty open.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I don't know nothing about tractors.
That's okay. That's okay. The person who has that tractor and is going to pay me in that tractor, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Well, good luck with that. That's a great one. Tractors. Do you travel a lot? You used to travel a lot, obviously not now, but in the past.
Not much. I've had the opportunity to do some traveling. I was in my mom, who was also a missionary recently, was doing some service in the Czech Republic. And so I went and visited her with my wife a couple years back. So I spent some time in Prague. Actually got to go visit CGE, the studios for CGE, and visited with them and got to know them better. And that was a really cool opportunity. That was great. I got a chance to go to France for the game festival in Cannes, actually right at the beginning of the pandemic. I could have been a super spreader, perhaps. But normally not a lot. I grew up in California, and I'm in Arizona, which is not far. So we drive to the beach, usually at least once a year with the family and go spend some time there. But with 5 kids, my wife and I deserve to take as many vacations as possible. We don't as much as we should, but if I travel, it's really just for us to get away. So we hope to do that more, but we haven't done a lot.
Have you been to a lot of conventions?
Not a lot. I'm actually going to be at, I don't know when this will air, but I'll be at Dice Tower West next weekend, which will be beginning of March. First time going to that one, but it's only 4 hours away, so I can drive. I have gone to Gen Con many times, and I've been to PAX Unplugged 1 or 2 times, but I don't go that often. Every time I go, I'm obviously having to take time away from work, and I'm always stressed with work. And so to spend money to be more stressed about the work I'm not getting done always seems just silly. When I go, I enjoy it, but also at the same time, I'm not able to be as relaxed as I would like to be. And also, I am a hermit, and I like to be in my studio doing work, and being in a crowd of thousands of people is not my best place. But it's a wonderful opportunity to meet fans, and I've really enjoyed when I've been to Gen Con in the past on multiple occasions, would go to, say, like the Starling Games booth and sign copies of Everdell or things like that. And I really enjoyed that. That's what I was doing when I went to France. I was going there with Space Cowboys, and I was signing copies of Kalis, and I really enjoyed that. So not often, but I like it when I can.
Good stuff. Andy, what lessons have you learned so far in life?
Life is good, but life's hard, and we need to be more kind to each other and more forgiving of each other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Any advice for illustrators?
Just work hard. Just do your best. My professors always taught me that it was the mileage, it's not the skill. It's putting in the time. If you feel like you've got it all figured out as an illustrator, you're probably wrong. So just keep studying, keep practicing, keep trying to get better. I don't think any artist should ever feel like they've figured it all out. That might be a hard reality to live with at times. As advice for an illustrator that I assume would want to be the best illustrator they could be, then they need to not be complacent and work their butt off all the time, constantly, without giving up on life. It isn't the only thing or the most important thing, but as far as illustration, if that's an important goal, then the work needs to be put into it.
How do you balance your life with work?
I have a really strict schedule. My wife helps keep that very strict. She knows when I'm supposed to be in from work and when I'm not. I'm, again, very fortunate. My studio is actually a separate building to the side of my house. So I have to leave my house to come here to work. That's been a huge thing. When I decided to go freelance, when I first went freelance, I was in my closet, a very small closet in our bedroom. And that was not easy to work with, but it was what I had. But that was hard because, it was very easy for my wife to say, "Hey, you're just sitting there doodling. Can you come and help me?" And I would want to do that. But she also, she knew I needed to work. So it was a challenge. And this physical scenario where I'm separated from the home is very helpful. But I have a very strict schedule. I go to work at a very specific time, and I come home at a very specific time, and I don't work. I do work when I come home, but only after the kids are in bed. And it just so happens that my wife and I love to just sit and watch TV together, and we love to play board games together. So at the end of the day, I leave my work in my office. I come home. I'm hanging out with the kids. We do lots of stuff together. They go to bed. My wife and I hang out. We play a board game, and then we watch TV. And sometimes I work while I watch TV, and then I go to bed, and then I start all over again. So I know where my work starts and stops, which is important.
It is, yeah. It's hard to work from home if you don't have the separation.
I don't struggle with the problem of not wanting to go to work, though. Like a lot of people who are not used to freelancing or creative things, friends that are far from this type of industry, they'll go, how do you even decide to get up, when you don't actually have to? And I truly do have to get up if I'm going to pay my bills, but I love what I do, so I'm more of a workaholic, and it's more a risk on the other side of letting work take too much of my time. So I have to be on guard for that, but I do, and so that helps that balance a lot.
Do you have deadlines for your projects?
Yes, I definitely have deadlines for my projects. This industry, boy, I'm going to get in trouble for this. This industry is very forgiving and very patient with deadlines. But also, this industry is also a bit nebulous with things. I have clients all the time come to me and go, "We're all done, but I need 10 more illustrations that you weren't planning on. Can you get them done this week?" And I have to go, nowadays I say no a little bit more often, or I can't in this week, but we're going to get it done. But it's that type of stuff that, like, we've all learned to be kind of patient with each other, because board game schedules are not like, I don't know, other industries where it has to be this day. You have to start your Kickstarter on this day or it won't work. It's
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah.
Or if this game is going to be late, okay, well, most publishers have a couple games in their schedule. And so if something happens that's out of our hands, say a global pandemic or something like that, then maybe things can be shifted around a little bit and people can make it work. I try to hit my deadlines as the very, very best I can. I was trained to do that, and I feel a lot of guilt when I don't. But fortunately, we're in a very patient and understanding industry that works with the realities of life too. So
It helps you as well, knowing where you need to be and take the next project. How are you with the customer service? Are you good at customer service?
I think so. I mean, my customers are my clients, so I think I'm a decent professional worker that communicates with my clients when I need to about whatever's going on. I think I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. So yeah, I'm pretty transparent. Even if there are delays and things, my clients can get a hold of me pretty quickly.
Do you have one of those rules where you only check emails on Tuesday and Thursday or something like that?
No, but I did decide to get off social media last year. At the beginning of 2021, I have accounts still, profiles on social media, but I just decided I was done. And that played a big part in me kind of shifting to a slightly more offline mode. Like, I don't work weekends ever, and when I'm at work, I am available for my clients whenever they need me. When I'm not at work, then I am a little bit more slow to respond to things, because I need to give that time to my family or to myself. So no, I'm not that strict about things. I want my clients to know that I'm there if they need me.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Yeah. One's an art creative one, and it's by a guy named Andrew Loomis, who was a great illustration teacher, wrote a lot of books, and very, very influential. Is not with us anymore, but he said, "Creativeness is in the planning, plain and simple. The rest is good carpenter work." It might not mean a lot to anybody, but for me, it really means a lot. Like, a lot of people will ask, when I'm doing art for clients, sometimes I have clients that will want to, we need this cover done, and I've got it all figured out. This is exactly what I want it to look like, and this is exactly where everything is go. I just need you to paint it. I mean, they don't, it's not exactly like that, but that's kind of really what's going on. Is they have decided what they think is going to be a great picture, and they're not even artists most of the time. So that's hard to swallow sometimes, because you're hiring me to be the artist, but you've already made all these decisions, and maybe I'm the best qualified to make some of those decisions. But it's also taking away the fun for me. My favorite part of any illustration I create is the planning, the organizing of where things will go, and figuring out color. And I mean, there's so much involved in that planning part of creating an illustration, and I love that. Once that's all solved, it's really simple moving forward from that point. It's not a lot of hard work. And so that's important to me. The creativeness is, for me, truly in that planning part. And the rest of it truly is just good carpenter work. I'm just painting good brushstrokes at that point, but the creative stuff comes at the beginning. That's my art quote. My other quote is actually a quote from that book that I read recently by Eric Metaxas. And he says, this is like life in general and about promoting things that are good. He wrote, "What we love, we change towards the good by loving it. That is the only path forward if we care about what is good. We must choose what we look at, and we must choose what we look beyond. But if our focus is on what is ugly, evil, and dark, we will strangely strengthen the ugly and evil and dark." It's a little bit long, but the idea being if we love something, we want to encourage it to be better, good. But if we're only focusing on the things that are negative about that, whether it's a person, whether it's our country, whether it's about anything, we're not actually making it better. We're really probably bringing it down even further. And we should love something. If a person, we should love the people that we want to help them to be better, and loving them will help them to do that. And I think it's a good principle to live by.
It is, yeah, definitely. It's a good principle. What are your plans for the future, Andy?
I'm very much excited to I hope to be in the board game industry for a very long time, but I am hoping to be shifting my focus a little bit away from client work and more towards projects that are my own. Maybe some people that are listening to this right now might know I have a personal brand of my own called Wits End. It's the name of my studio. This is Wits End Studios right here. It basically encompasses anything that's of my own personal projects, the world building things that I am working on. And I already have some things in the works. There is a game being produced that is set in a unique world that I have created that is in development right now that will be released in the nearish future. And my plan is to be doing more of that, taking the things that I've created in Wits End, partner with other publishers to get those into the board game industry, into board games. But also, I plan to take those same worlds and same stories that I have been developing and continue to develop into other mediums, books and comics and things like that. So I am hoping as those things happen, they can snowball into perhaps me splitting my time a little bit more instead of being only working for clients to working partly with clients and partly on my own projects. It shouldn't look much different to any person just playing games. I mean, other than it'll be something I've had more creativity in producing, but it should be just more board games and maybe more fun stories to go with those board games too.
What is so appealing to you to work on board games, on illustrating board games, rather than working in book covers or comics or other things like that?
Board games are really unique. Board games in general, I love. I've always loved board games. I've always made board games. When I was a kid, I made board games. I didn't know what I was doing, and they were horrible, but I loved to do it. And that was before there was this resurgence of board games in the world we've seen. So I love board games. I think board games bring people together. They're not for everybody. I've learned very clearly most of my interactions with people in the world are face-to-face interactions, are not with people who play board games, and they're not with artists, but those who enjoy them. They're a wonderful, much more wholesome, much more sociable alternative to video games, which is in my industry I was in previously. I enjoy video games, but board games I love being a part of. So I love that for one. But what makes them as an artist unique is being an illustrator for a board game, I get a chance to work on the whole thing. When I was working in video games, a video game production is so huge most of the time that no one artist could feel like they are making a significant impact on what you are actually going to receive as a consumer. Especially as a concept artist, no one would ever see what I was making. I might design a character, I might design an environment, and that was creatively challenging and very, very fulfilling. But I could just go, I worked on that thing, but I couldn't point to anything and go, this is, and certainly not the entire thing very often and say, I created this or I played a heavy role in this. In board games, especially things like an Everdell or a Tapestry or Merchants of the Dark Road, the games are a little bit bigger. There's an opportunity to direct the look of something much, much bigger. You can feel like you're spending time in it and you feel like you're in that world in the same way that you can for a couple hours do when you're watching a movie or when you're reading a book or when you're playing a video game. But with board games, you can still do that. And I get to be a part of the entire process, which I really love. I don't know why I felt like that would be missing in other things, but I love to be able to say, Well, I mean, for Everdell, I love to be able to say that that is a world that I helped in a significant way bring to lots of people.
It's a beautiful world you created there. It's just unbelievable. It's great. It's magical. Yeah, it's a fairy tale.
Well, thank you.
It's a classic already. So yeah, it's great. Are you still open for commissions?
Do you mean for board game projects?
Yes.
Yes. I separate that. What I call commissions is would be like when somebody emails me and says, "Hey, can you paint a picture for me and make me in an Everdell style or something like that?" And I do those occasionally, not very often, but yes, commissions for games, I am, but I am currently at the moment booked up that I'm not actually taking really many clients right now. I need to finish the ones that I have that are scheduled out, and I'm scheduled out through the end of this year. I'm really, really hoping by the beginning of next year that I will be significantly shifting to a lot more of my own projects. But please, whoever is listening, if you have a board game, email me anyway, because all of those might fail and I'm just still going to need work. So,
Yeah, I was about to ask you where people can find you.
yes, my website, bosleyart.com, is the best place. Last year, when I left social media, I really isolated myself and I really didn't even do much with my website or anything like that. This year and moving forward, I plan to be, and I have already started to be a lot more active with my blog, with my newsletters. So I have a sort of monthly newsletter that I send out, and people can access that through my website. And that's where I share information about the client projects that are coming out soon and the personal projects for Wits End that I'm working on. I am not on social media, so I really basically ignore any communication from there these days. But people can email me anytime they want to. Andrew at bosleyart.com. There is a Facebook group and an Instagram group that is sharing my work, and I work with the couple that are doing it. They are sharing often unique things or things that would be hard to find that I am helping to facilitate.
What's the name of the group?
It's called the Sketch Hunters Guild. It's a funny name. You'll find the group pretty quickly if you search for that.
Is it on Facebook?
Facebook and Instagram. But yeah, and so that the newsletter and that Facebook page is where most of the information, if people want to keep up to date with the things I'm doing, that's the best place to find it. But if people want to communicate with me directly, email is the best way to do that.
Yeah, that's great. So, what type of projects are you interested in? I mean, who can contact you?
Anybody can contact me. What am I interested in? I mean, well, gosh, I guess I could be specific. I mean, my normal philosophy as a freelancer is I'll take any job that pays because I've got to feed my family. I'm not that picky most of the time. But when things are very, very busy and I more regularly have to turn down work, it's the projects that allow me to do that creative world building that probably draw my attention more than anything else. So yeah, if it's a simple casual game, that's I enjoy those myself personally, but that those are the type of things that sometimes are a little bit. I mean, if I have the time, I'll do them. But when I don't have time, I would be more likely or more easily able to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't take that one on. If it's something that is going to be, nobody can guarantee that a game is going to be epic in its reception. But if they've got a really fun world that they want to explore and they need artwork to do it, and they trust me to create cool artwork for that, well, then that's certainly much more enticing for me and something I'd be more eager to jump on if I have the time to do it.
Yeah, so basically bigger projects.
Bigger projects are better for me just because I can say, I mean, I would much rather be able to say, okay, the next 3 months I've got work,
Yeah,
as opposed to if I had a giant collection of projects that take me a couple days to work, that's a little bit more insecure and of a challenge for a freelancer. So even from a practical standpoint, I certainly would prefer bigger projects because I work basically monthly at a time. I go, this project is this month, this project is this month.
so is it basically board games only, or are you taking any other type of projects?
I'm actually designing an album. I'm doing an album cover for a company right now. I still freelance occasionally for video games. I'm open to lots of different projects, but right now it definitely is majority board games. But I'm open.
That's great. Well, anything else you want to share with us?
I was really hoping we'd have time for me to, to play my ukulele for the group, but the composition that I composed is 30 minutes, and I don't think we have time for it. So I think it'd be best if I save that for another time.
Another time, yeah. Okay, then. Thank you so much for accepting to have a chat with us tonight, and good luck with your projects.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good to see you, Andy.
Yeah, well, see you again next time. Who knows? Thanks for listening, guys. See you next week. Bye.